Most people spend their lives chasing attention, believing that if they can make someone notice them, admire them, or constantly think about them, they will finally become unforgettable. But human nature has a strange paradox. The harder you chase someone's attention, the faster it slips away. The more desperate you become for someone's approval, the less valuable you appear in their eyes. This isn't because people are cruel. It's because the human mind is naturally drawn toward what appears confident, purposeful, and complete, without needing constant validation. If you truly want to become unforgettable, your first goal should never be making someone obsessed with you. Your goal should be becoming someone worth remembering. There is a profound difference between the two. One is built on manipulation and insecurity. The other is built on character, purpose, and quiet confidence. Think about the people who leave a lasting impression. They rarely spend their energy convincing others to like them. They aren't constantly checking their phone, wondering why someone hasn't replied. They don't reshape their personality to fit every room they enter. Instead, they carry a sense of direction that exists independently of anyone else's opinion. Their life has movement. Their mind has focus. Their identity remains stable, whether they receive attention or not. This is where most people make their greatest mistake. The moment they become interested in someone, they unintentionally place that person at the center of their world. Their schedule begins revolving around one conversation. Their mood depends on one message. Their confidence rises or falls based on one person's reaction. Without realizing it, they have surrendered control over their emotional state. And the moment someone becomes responsible for your happiness, you begin giving away your power. Human nature instinctively notices this imbalance. People are attracted to emotional stability because stability creates trust. But emotional dependence often creates pressure. No one wants to feel responsible for carrying another person's self-worth. Genuine attraction grows when two complete individuals choose to share their lives, not when one person expects the other to complete them. This is why purpose is so magnetic. A person deeply committed to meaningful goals naturally becomes more interesting because their attention isn't consumed by seeking approval. They wake up with something larger than validation guiding their decisions. They continue learning, creating, and growing regardless of who is watching. That quiet dedication creates an energy that cannot be manufactured through clever words or calculated techniques. Notice how people with strong purpose behave. They enjoy meaningful relationships, but they don't abandon their ambitions to preserve them. They appreciate affection, but they don't beg for it. They welcome attention, but they don't depend on it. Their confidence comes from promises they've kept to themselves, not compliments they've received from others. There is another reason chasing rarely works. Desperation eliminates mystery. When someone knows exactly how you feel, exactly where you'll be, and exactly how available you are at every moment, curiosity begins to disappear. Human beings are naturally curious about people whose lives continue moving forward, with or without external recognition. Mystery is not created by playing games or pretending to be unavailable. It is created by genuinely having a full, meaningful life that doesn't revolve around constant attention from one person. Many people confuse persistence with value. They believe that sending more messages, giving more compliments, or making greater sacrifices will somehow increase attraction. But attraction is not measured by effort alone. It is influenced by perception. When all of your energy flows in one direction, people unconsciously begin asking why. Why is this person investing so much before trust has even been established? Why do they seem willing to give everything without expecting mutual effort? These questions often reduce admiration instead of increasing it. The strongest relationships are built through balance. Interest should be met with interest. Respect should be met with respect. Effort should be met with effort. When one person does all the chasing, the relationship slowly becomes unequal. Equality disappears, and with it, much of the natural attraction that healthy relationships require. Instead of asking yourself how to make someone think about you, ask a different question. How can you become the kind of person who naturally leaves a lasting impression? Develop your mind. Strengthen your discipline. Improve your communication. Pursue meaningful work. Protect your peace. Build a life so fulfilling that anyone who becomes part of it adds value rather than becoming its entire purpose. Ironically, this is when people begin noticing you differently. They see someone who isn't controlled by loneliness, fear, or the need for constant reassurance. They encounter someone whose confidence is earned rather than performed. That kind of presence is rare because it cannot be faked for long. It is built quietly through daily habits, self-respect, and unwavering purpose. And when your life becomes your greatest priority, you stop chasing attention because your value begins attracting it naturally. When you stop chasing people, something unexpected begins to happen. They become curious. Not because you've started playing games, but because you've stopped revealing everything about yourself all at once. Human nature has always been fascinated by mystery. The mind is naturally drawn toward what it doesn't fully understand. It keeps returning to unfinished stories, unanswered questions, and people who leave room for imagination. That is why mystery is far more powerful than constant explanation. Many people unknowingly destroy attraction because they feel the need to tell everyone everything. The moment they meet someone they like, they begin revealing every dream, every fear, every childhood story, every future plan, and every emotion they experience. They believe honesty means immediate transparency. But trust isn't built in a single conversation. It grows gradually. Just as you don't read the final page of a great book first, meaningful relationships unfold one chapter at a time. Think about the people who leave the strongest impression on you. They probably weren't the ones who talked nonstop. They weren't trying to dominate every conversation or constantly prove how interesting they were. Instead, they listened carefully. They observed more than they spoke. Every conversation with them felt as though there was always something new to discover. That sense of discovery keeps the mind engaged because curiosity is one of the strongest psychological forces in human nature. This doesn't mean becoming distant or pretending to be mysterious. Artificial mystery quickly becomes obvious. If someone ignores messages on purpose, gives confusing answers, or behaves unpredictably simply to attract attention, people eventually recognize the performance. Real mystery is different. It comes naturally from having a rich inner life. When you're focused on your goals, your passions, and your personal growth, you don't feel pressured to reveal every detail of your life for validation. You speak with intention instead of impulse. One of the greatest signs of confidence is the ability to remain comfortable with silence. Most people rush to fill every quiet moment because silence makes them uncomfortable. They worry that if they stop talking, others will lose interest. But silence often creates the opposite effect. It invites curiosity. It encourages people to ask questions. It allows your words to carry more weight because they are chosen carefully instead of spoken endlessly. Notice how powerful people communicate. They don't answer every question with long explanations. They don't reveal every opinion immediately. They allow conversations to breathe. This isn't manipulation, it's discipline. They understand that words lose value when there are too many of them. A person who speaks less but with purpose is often remembered far longer than someone who speaks constantly without direction. Another reason mystery creates attraction is that it prevents predictability. Human beings quickly adapt to patterns. When someone knows exactly what you'll say, how you'll react, and what you'll do in every situation, the excitement of discovery begins to disappear. Predictability creates comfort, but too much predictability often weakens curiosity. This doesn't mean changing your personality every day. It means continuing to grow. Continue learning, continue developing new perspectives, skills, and experiences. A person committed to growth naturally remains interesting because they are constantly evolving. Many people also underestimate the power of observation. They become so focused on being noticed that they forget to notice others. Yet the best communicators are usually the best observers. They pay attention to details most people overlook. They notice changes in someone's mood. They remember meaningful conversations. They understand that making another person feel seen is often more memorable than trying to make yourself impressive. This balance between speaking and observing creates emotional depth. Instead of rushing to tell your entire story, allow people to earn different parts of it. Relationships built slowly often become stronger because trust develops naturally. Every meaningful conversation becomes another layer instead of the entire foundation. There is also wisdom in protecting your future plans. Many people announce every ambition before taking the first step. They seek excitement through public approval rather than private progress. But goals often become stronger when they are nurtured quietly. Let your actions introduce your achievements before your words attempt to describe them. Results create curiosity far more effectively than promises ever will. As your confidence grows, you'll also notice something important. You stop feeling the need to explain yourself to everyone. You become comfortable letting people misunderstand you temporarily because you know your identity is not defined by their immediate opinion. That quiet certainty becomes attractive because it reflects emotional independence rather than insecurity. The truth is, unforgettable people are rarely unforgettable because they tried to capture everyone's attention. They become unforgettable because they lived with purpose, spoke with intention, listened deeply, and allowed others to discover them naturally instead of forcing every detail into the spotlight. Because when people feel there is always more to discover about you, their curiosity keeps bringing them back long after the conversation has ended. By the time someone becomes curious about you, another question quietly begins to form in their mind. It isn't about what you own, where you come from, or how many people admire you. The question is much simpler. How does this person make me feel? Long after people forget your exact words, they remember the emotional experience of being around you. That experience is created by something far more powerful than appearance or charm. It is created by your presence. Most people misunderstand presence because they confuse it with being the loudest person in the room. They believe commanding attention means speaking more, laughing louder, or constantly proving how confident they are. But genuine presence works in the opposite direction. It doesn't force itself upon others. It quietly fills the room because it comes from inner certainty rather than the need for recognition. Have you ever noticed that some people can walk into a room without saying a single word, yet everyone seems aware of them? It isn't because they are trying to impress anyone. It is because they appear completely comfortable with themselves. They don't rush their movements. They don't nervously search for approval in every face. They don't constantly adjust their personality depending on who they're talking to. There is a calmness about them that immediately captures attention because calmness is rare in a world filled with noise. Human nature is deeply attracted to emotional stability. Most people spend their lives reacting to everything around them. One compliment makes them feel unstoppable. One criticism destroys their confidence. One unanswered message ruins their entire day. Their emotions rise and fall depending on circumstances they cannot control. But someone who remains emotionally grounded stands out immediately because they seem untouched by the chaos that controls everyone else. This doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionless. In fact, emotionally stable people often feel deeply. The difference is that they choose their responses instead of allowing every feeling to choose for them. They understand that emotions are temporary, while character is permanent. That quiet discipline creates trust because people naturally feel safer around someone who doesn't lose control every time life becomes uncomfortable. Your body language also speaks before your voice ever does. Every movement tells a story. Walking with purpose communicates confidence. Standing comfortably instead of shrinking into the background communicates self-respect. Maintaining calm eye contact shows that you are present rather than distracted. None of these behaviors require perfection. They simply reflect a person who is at peace with themselves instead of constantly worrying about how they are being judged. One of the greatest mistakes people make is trying too hard to appear impressive. They rehearse conversations, exaggerate achievements, and carefully calculate every word, hoping to create the perfect image. Ironically, this effort often creates the opposite effect. People instinctively recognize when someone is performing instead of simply being authentic. Confidence cannot be manufactured through performance. It is built through repeated acts of self-discipline that eventually become part of your identity. Think about where real confidence comes from. It isn't created by expensive clothes, social status, or endless compliments. Those things disappear quickly. Real confidence is earned privately. It grows every time you finish something difficult. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes another brick in the foundation of your self-belief. Every challenge you overcome quietly reminds you that your strength doesn't depend on external validation. This is why people with genuine presence rarely feel the need to compete for attention. They know their worth isn't determined by who notices them first. They don't interrupt conversations to redirect the spotlight toward themselves. They listen carefully because they aren't afraid of silence. They ask thoughtful questions because they are interested in understanding people instead of simply impressing them. Ironically, this lack of desperation often makes them the most memorable person in the room. Another quality that strengthens your presence is consistency. Many people appear confident one day and insecure the next because their identity changes according to their environment. Around powerful people, they become timid. Around weaker people, they become arrogant. This inconsistency creates uncertainty. But someone whose character remains steady regardless of status, wealth, or popularity becomes remarkably trustworthy. Their confidence doesn't depend on who is standing in front of them because it comes from within. Presence is also strengthened by patience. In today's world, everyone feels pressured to speak immediately, respond instantly, and constantly prove themselves. But people with quiet strength understand the value of slowing down. They don't rush decisions. They don't interrupt others. They don't panic when conversations become silent. They trust that their value doesn't disappear simply because they aren't speaking every second. As your presence becomes stronger, something fascinating begins to happen. People start remembering you for reasons they cannot fully explain. They simply know they felt calm, understood, and respected around you. That emotional memory is far more powerful than any clever line or dramatic gesture because it reaches beyond logic and speaks directly to human nature. And when your presence becomes stronger than your need for attention, people begin thinking about you long after you've already walked away. Once your presence becomes memorable, you discover a truth that most people overlook. Attraction is rarely created by saying the perfect thing. It is created by making someone feel something meaningful. Human beings may forget conversations, but they rarely forget the emotions those conversations awakened inside them. This is why the people who leave the deepest impression are often not the most entertaining or the most attractive. They are the ones who make others feel genuinely understood. In today's world, this has become incredibly rare. Everyone wants to speak, but very few want to listen. Everyone is preparing their next response while the other person is still talking. Conversations have become competitions instead of connections. People interrupt, compare stories, search for opportunities to impress, and secretly hope to be admired. But the human heart isn't searching for another performer. It is searching for someone who makes it feel seen. Think about the last person who made you feel completely understood. Chances are they didn't spend the entire conversation talking about themselves. They asked thoughtful questions. They paid attention to the details you almost expected them to forget. They looked at you instead of constantly looking at their phone. They listened without rushing to judge or solve every problem. That simple act of presence created something far more valuable than clever words ever could. Human nature responds powerfully to genuine attention because attention has become one of the rarest gifts in modern life. People spend hours scrolling through endless information, yet very few experience real connection. They receive hundreds of messages but almost no meaningful conversations. They are surrounded by people, yet many still feel invisible. The moment someone makes them feel heard without conditions, that experience becomes unforgettable. This is why listening is not a passive skill. It is an active form of influence. When you truly listen, you begin understanding what motivates people, what they fear, what excites them, and what kind of future they hope to build. Most people reveal these things naturally if they believe they are speaking with someone who genuinely cares, instead of someone simply waiting for their turn to talk. Notice how often people unintentionally reveal what matters most to them. Sometimes it appears in a casual sentence. Sometimes it appears in a joke. Sometimes it appears in a complaint they repeat several times. Most people ignore these small clues because they are focused on themselves, but someone who pays attention remembers them. Weeks later, they ask about that important project. They remember the name of a family member. They recall a dream someone once mentioned in passing. These small moments communicate something powerful. You mattered enough for me to remember. That feeling cannot be manufactured through expensive gifts or dramatic gestures. It is earned through consistent attention and sincere curiosity. There is another mistake people often make when trying to create attraction. They believe they must constantly impress others. They exaggerate their achievements, tell endless stories about themselves, or try to appear extraordinary in every conversation. Ironically, this often creates distance instead of closeness. People admire confidence, but they connect through authenticity. They don't remember you because you claim to have all the answers. They remember you because they felt comfortable enough to be themselves around you. True confidence allows you to become curious instead of competitive, instead of asking, "How can I make this person like me?" Your focus quietly shifts towards another question. Who is this person really? That single change transforms every interaction. Your conversations become deeper because they are driven by discovery rather than performance. Of course, making someone feel understood does not mean losing yourself in the process. There is an important difference between empathy and people-pleasing. Empathy allows you to understand another person's perspective without abandoning your own values. People-pleasing sacrifices authenticity in exchange for approval. One builds respect. The other creates dependence. Healthy attraction grows when two people feel safe enough to express who they truly are. It is not built on pretending to agree with everything. It is built on honesty delivered with kindness, confidence balanced with humility, and attention offered without expecting anything in return. As you continue developing this ability, you'll notice another remarkable change. People begin opening up to you naturally. They share ideas they rarely tell others. They trust you with meaningful conversations because they sense they will not be judged or ignored. This trust cannot be forced. It develops quietly through repeated moments of genuine presence. And perhaps the greatest secret of all is this. When people consistently feel valued, respected, and understood in your presence, they begin associating those emotions with you. They don't remember you because you demanded their attention. They remember you because you gave them something they rarely experience in today's world. A moment where they felt completely seen. And the people who make others feel truly understood are the ones who are remembered long after the conversation ends. After you've learned to stop chasing attention, embrace the quiet power of mystery, developed an unshakable presence, and mastered the art of making people feel understood, there is one more transformation that changes everything. It is the moment you become difficult to replace. Not because you make yourself unavailable, or because you try to create artificial distance, but because you become someone whose value comes from within, rather than from the attention of another person. One of the greatest mistakes people make is allowing one relationship to become the center of their entire identity. The moment this happens, everything else begins to fade. Personal goals are postponed, friendships become neglected, ambitions are quietly abandoned, hobbies disappear. The world slowly becomes smaller until one person's opinion determines your happiness, your confidence, and even your sense of purpose. At first, this may seem like devotion, but over time, it often becomes emotional dependence. Human nature is drawn toward people who have a life of their own. There is something deeply attractive about someone who wakes up each morning with a purpose that exists beyond seeking another person's approval. They have dreams they are working toward, skills they are developing, challenges they are overcoming, and principles they refuse to compromise. Their identity is built on a foundation that remains strong regardless of who enters or leaves their life. This kind of independence should never be confused with emotional distance. Becoming difficult to replace does not mean becoming unavailable, cold, or indifferent. It means understanding that love, admiration, and meaningful relationships should add to your life, not become the only thing holding it together. The healthiest relationships are formed between two people who are already complete, not two people hoping the other will fill every empty space within them. Think about individuals who naturally earn lasting respect. They don't constantly seek reassurance that they are valued. They don't panic every time communication slows down. They don't abandon their principles simply to keep someone interested. Instead, they continue investing in themselves. They keep learning. They keep growing. They remain committed to becoming better than they were yesterday. That steady commitment creates confidence that no compliment can provide and no rejection can take away. People often believe attraction is created by saying the right words or using the right techniques, but lasting admiration is rarely built through techniques. It is built through substance. A person who is constantly improving becomes more interesting with time because they continue evolving. They develop new ideas, new perspectives, and new experiences. Every chapter of their life adds another layer to who they are. Growth itself becomes part of their identity. This is why investing in your mind is one of the greatest investments you can ever make. Read books that challenge your thinking. Learn skills that increase your competence. Strengthen your physical and emotional discipline. Build habits that make you more reliable, more patient, and more resilient. Every improvement quietly increases your value, not because you are trying to impress someone, but because you are becoming a stronger version of yourself. Many people spend years asking, how do I become more attractive? A far better question is, how do I become more valuable? Attraction often captures attention, but value earns respect. Appearance may open a door, but character determines whether someone wants you in their life over the long term. The qualities that make someone unforgettable are rarely superficial. They are found in integrity, consistency, wisdom, emotional maturity, and the quiet confidence that comes from living according to your values. Another important lesson is learning to enjoy your own company. Someone who is comfortable being alone is far less likely to accept unhealthy relationships simply to avoid loneliness. Solitude becomes a place for reflection instead of fear. It becomes an opportunity to grow, instead of a reminder of what is missing. This inner peace changes the way you interact with others because your decisions are no longer driven by desperation. They are guided by choice. As your life becomes richer, something remarkable happens. Conversations become more meaningful because you have genuine experiences to share. Your confidence becomes more natural because it is supported by real accomplishments. Your perspective becomes broader because you have invested in understanding the world instead of seeking constant validation from it. People notice this difference. They sense that your worth is not dependent on their approval, and that quiet independence becomes one of your most compelling qualities. Ironically, the less your happiness depends on one person, the healthier your relationships become. You appreciate people without trying to possess them. You value connection without sacrificing your identity. You offer affection freely without expecting it to become your only source of fulfillment. This balance creates respect because it allows both individuals to grow instead of one constantly depending on the other. The truth is, becoming difficult to replace has very little to do with making other people fear losing you. It has everything to do with becoming someone whose character, purpose, and self-respect cannot easily be found. People naturally value what is rare, and a person who continues to grow with discipline, humility, and purpose becomes increasingly rare in a world that often settles for comfort over progress. And when you become the best investment in your own life, others begin to recognize a value that cannot easily be replaced. As you continue building a life rooted in purpose, confidence, mystery, and genuine connection, there is one final lesson that separates fleeting attraction from lasting admiration. It is the willingness to walk away when respect disappears. Most people believe the secret to keeping someone interested is holding on tighter. But human nature teaches a different lesson. Sometimes the greatest display of confidence is knowing when to let go. Many people remain in situations that slowly destroy their self-respect because they confuse attachment with love. They tolerate dishonesty because they fear being alone. They ignore disrespect because they hope the other person will eventually change. They sacrifice their own values just to keep someone's attention. At first, these compromises seem small. You stay silent when something hurts you. You accept behavior you once promised yourself you would never accept. You lower your standards a little more each time because losing the relationship feels more frightening than losing yourself. But every compromise carries a hidden cost. Each time you ignore your own boundaries, you quietly teach yourself that your feelings matter less than someone else's approval. Over time, this begins changing the way you see yourself. Confidence slowly fades because confidence cannot survive where self-respect is repeatedly abandoned. Human nature responds to standards. People often treat you according to what you consistently allow. If someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries without consequence, they begin believing those boundaries never truly existed. This doesn't happen because people are naturally cruel. It happens because actions communicate more clearly than words. You can tell someone that you deserve respect 100 times, but if your actions continually accept disrespect, your behavior becomes the louder message. This is why emotionally strong people understand something many never learn. They do not chase relationships at the expense of their dignity. They recognize that affection without respect eventually becomes unhealthy. Attention without honesty becomes exhausting. Connection without trust becomes fragile. No matter how exciting a relationship may seem, if it constantly requires you to betray your own principles, the price is simply too high. Walking away does not mean giving up at the first disagreement. Every meaningful relationship experiences conflict. Misunderstandings happen. Mistakes happen. Growth often requires uncomfortable conversations. The difference lies in the willingness to solve problems together. When both people listen, communicate honestly, and make sincere efforts to improve, Relationships become stronger through difficulty. But when disrespect becomes a repeated pattern and only one person continues making sacrifices, the relationship slowly loses its balance. Many people fear walking away because they believe it means failure. In reality, staying in an unhealthy situation out of fear often causes far greater damage. The courage to leave something that consistently destroys your peace is not weakness. It is one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity. It demonstrates that your happiness is built on your values, not on another person's decision to stay. Another important truth is that you should never beg for attention. The moment affection becomes something you constantly have to convince another person to give, it stops feeling genuine. Healthy relationships are built on mutual effort. Both people choose each other. Both invest time, honesty, and respect. If one person does all the chasing while the other does all the deciding, the relationship slowly transforms into an imbalance of power rather than a partnership. This is why self-respect is so attractive. A person who values themselves does not become arrogant. They simply understand that their peace is worth protecting. They know they can care deeply about someone without abandoning who they are. They know they can love sincerely without accepting behavior that destroys their emotional well-being. This quiet strength creates security because it shows that their actions are guided by principles instead of fear. Ironically, people often become more respected when they stop trying to force others to stay. There is a certain confidence in someone who says, "I appreciate you, but I will not sacrifice my dignity to keep you." That statement does not need to be spoken aloud. It is communicated through calm decisions, healthy boundaries, and consistent actions. It reflects a person who understands that genuine connection can never be built through desperation. As your confidence continues to grow, you begin seeing relationships differently. Instead of asking, "How do I make someone obsessed with me?" you begin asking, "Does this relationship bring out the best in both of us?" That single question changes everything. Your focus shifts from controlling another person's emotions to protecting your own character. You stop measuring your worth by how much attention you receive and start measuring it by how faithfully you live according to your values. In the end, the people who leave the deepest impression are not those who desperately hold on to everyone they meet. They are the ones who carry themselves with quiet confidence, offer genuine respect, build meaningful connections, and have the courage to walk away when those qualities are no longer returned. That kind of strength cannot be faked because it is built through discipline, self-awareness, and unwavering self-respect. And when you value yourself enough to walk away from what no longer honors your worth, you become someone whose presence is remembered, not because you chased attention, but because you never abandoned your character to keep it.